I was hoping I'd come back from Dublin and Paris after a fun weekend with some positivity for a change. I was really hoping that we could start fresh this week when I came back with a bit of optimism surrounding things. And somehow, even though absolutely nothing has happened, really, when you think about it, nothing has happened. We haven't signed players. We had one of the worst and most boring derbies in the history of the fixture. Nothing's happened, but yet so much has happened. Because that little movement at Celtic Football Club speaks 1,000 words. It speaks more than 1,000 words. It speaks to so much discontent, anxiety, and anger that has gone on amongst the Celtic support for the past couple of months. And it speaks to so much insecurity, disbelief, and anxiety moving forward. So even though nothing has happened, technically speaking, we didn't replace Kyogo. We sold Adam Ida and didn't replace him. We didn't sign to the level that we expected. We didn't beat Rangers. We didn't even score against them. Even though nothing has literally happened at Celtic Football Club, so much has gone on to ruin what was any form of positivity or optimism that I had as a Celtic supporter heading into this week, heading into the end of the transfer window and heading into the season truly starting. You know, because once we're back from international break, it well and truly begins. You know, it well and truly gets underway. And see, before I talk about anything else, I don't know if I've got a proper rant in me. I'm scunnered. I am absolutely scunnered with everything about Celtic Football Club at the minute. And that's not because of our support who have been so mistreated. That's not because of players who do try, even though they are under criticism at the minute. It's not because of Celtic Football Club as an entity itself. It's because of the guys in the shirts and ties in the stands who don't care about Celtic supporters one bit. It's about those in the shirts and ties who constantly revel in the distaste that is in the mouth of Celtic and the hatred that the Celtic fans have for them. They know we hate them. And do you know why? Because they hate us even more and they treat us with even more contempt than we do them. And it's not because of the people that I've said, but because of them, I have never felt this low in my lifetime being a Celtic supporter. And I know that there is the happy clapper brigade that constantly like to remind fans my age or younger or of similar ages, yous are lucky, yous got it good, yous didn't have to live through the 90s, yous don't know what it was like when times were really tough. I'm sorry I wasn't born 20 years earlier. I can't help that, sadly. You know, I wasn't in control of when I was born. But in my lifetime, I genuinely haven't felt this disinterested, this disengaged from the club that I love. I have never ever once in my life, even when we lost the league title at COVID, sat there and considered ever giving up any form of support to the club. Tomorrow, I might, and I'm strongly leaning towards picking up that phone and taking my name off the home cup ticket scheme. Because I am so disinterested and so down about what is going on at my football club. And we have radio silence from people at the club who are scared to pick up the phone or scared to talk to the media. A chief executive officer who's scared to put his face anywhere to the club. In fact, he's quicker to go and shut the curtains at Celtic Park than he is to address his own supporters. We've got a chairman who has been one of the single-handed reasons for no progression in the past 20 years, and we've got an owner who claims to be the sole owner of Celtic with only 34% of the club, who claims to bleed green and white at Celtic Football Club, who doesn't give a shit, who doesn't attend his own AGMs, who doesn't attend matches, who truly does not care. This is worse than COVID, because see, during COVID, at least there was the excuse of a global pandemic. At least there was an excuse that supporters couldn't make it to the grounds. At least there was somewhat of a reason to excuse what was going on at Celtic Football Club. We were naive, and I will hold my hands up and say it was one of them, to quickly forgive and forget, to quickly move on and think that the board could make up for the shortcomings of 2020. Those shortcomings have been doubled this past month at Celtic Football Club. A board who are entirely incapable of doing their job. A board who have shown time and time again they aren't the qualified businessmen who deserve to be running Celtic Football Club. A board who have showed time and time again that they genuinely do not care about the Celtic supporters, and unless it hurts them in their pockets, they will never listen to us. I don't know what the next step is to force change at Celtic. I really don't. I can't sit here and beg fans to stop going to games. I'm not going to sit here and be the one to try and organise mass protests at Celtic Park. Who am I to claim I have the power to do that? That isn't me. You know, I can do what I can do to voice my discontent, but I'm not a spokesman of the support. I know some people always say, Ryan, use your voice to do this. I've never claimed to be a spokesman of Celtic or Celtic supporters. Never in my life, and I never will, because I am just some clown that sits behind a camera and gives my opinion. And I think that's totally fair. But what do we actually do to force these charlatans, these idiots, and these totally unqualified arseholes to get out of our football club? Because I am so scunnered, and I'm at the end of the line, and I don't know how anybody can even sit here and defend them anymore. Because I know there's some supporters who be listening to what I say right now, and I know the majority of you agree with me in the chat. I see the comments piling through. I know so many of you agree with what I'm saying, but there is that slight percentage of people who say it's entitlement, who say it's misunderstanding, that it's just moaning for the sake of it, that it's sheer negativity. It's none of those things. It's wanting what's best for the club that I support. It's wanting what's best for our supporters moving forward, so that we can go to Celtic Park on a week-to-week basis, and that we can support and love our club and see progression and lead us back to where we were. I'm not expecting Celtic to ever win a European Cup again in my lifetime. The landscape of football has changed significantly in the past 60 years. Significantly to the extent where Celtic will probably never get even close to a European Cup final. But that doesn't mean you stop chasing, and that doesn't mean you stop trying. That doesn't mean you stop trying to be a better version of yourself. We have been laughed at all over Europe this summer by football clubs, by players, by chief executives. Players are knocking back Celtic Football Club to play for Charlton Athletic. We have been embarrassed. And for a group of owners who turn up, and a group of chairmen and board leaders that turn up to the AGM every year and brag about how well as a business we are run, we have been laughed at and humiliated one too many times to even claim that we are remotely close to being run as a business. Celtic Football Club is not a business. Celtic Football Club is exactly that. It's a football club that was made for the people, that was made for its supporters. And Fergus McCann came in to save Celtic Football Club from the very people who are destroying it right now. We have gone backwards in the past 20 years, and there is nothing that can suggest, doesn't matter the bank balances, it doesn't matter the domestic success. We have regressed as a football club. We have regressed as the reputable name we once were across Europe. Teams draw us and they laugh. Players look at us and think, you know what? I'd rather move elsewhere. I'm not going to Celtic. We pump money into this team, this football club, year after year, and we get sweet fuck all back. Fuck all. All we ask is for reinvestment, is for players, for excitement, and something to keep us entertained in the stands. And when you can't give us that back, that's where the line is drawn. And I wish that I could stand there with a microphone in my hand and say this to Michael Nicholson's face, to Peter Lawwell's face, and Dermot Desmond's face. And I know that I've only got 1,300 viewers here. I'm hardly talking to the full of Scotland right now. But if there's any way for this to be amplified to the people that need to hear it, then I say it loud and clear. Get out of our football club. It's time for change. It's time for change at Celtic. We all know it. We all want it. You're destroying our club. Take your 800 grand paycheck bonuses and get to fuck. Get out of the club. You're robbing us. You're giving us nothing back. And enough is enough. It's as simple as that. We just want our club to be doing the best it can be doing. And we don't get that. And where's their answer? And where's their answer, Where's their answer? Where's my statement? Where's my apology? Where's any form of communication with the supporters? You know? And as I've said, there are people out there. There are people out there who will defend this shower of bastards. Who will say that they bleed. And this is going to Brendan Rodgers as well, who claims that they bleed for the club. If they bled for this fucking football club, we would have had an apology when the fucking window shut last night. We would have had an 11 o'clock statement. An 11 o'clock statement saying that we tried and we're sorry we didn't deliver. But do you know why they didn't do that? Because they didn't try. They didn't bother their arse. They had months to get their affairs in order, to improve this team. And we have arrived at the end of the window weaker than we have been in the past decade. I don't remember a weaker Celtic side since the days of Ronnie Dyler. And I mean that with all due respect to Ronnie. God bless him. I was a big fan of Ronnie Dyler. But we have never been weaker since. Until now. Kyogo left the club over 200 days ago. We haven't replaced him. We haven't even replaced fucking Georgios Yakimakis, it feels like, who left years ago. We haven't replaced Matt O'Reilly. We haven't replaced other players who've left the club all over the pitch. We are bleeding. And now we're being linked with Patrick Bamford and Emmanuel Dennis and Kelechi Ahi and fucking Acho. That's the laughing stock that we have been resulted to. That is the point where we now stand. We spent less money than so many clubs across Europe, including Rangers. How embarrassing can it get? How embarrassing can it truly get under this current ownership and leadership group at Celtic Football Club? Because this feels like rock bottom. And the worst part about it all, ladies and gentlemen, is if this is rock bottom, I hate to be the guy that says this, but I can only see things getting worse. And look, listen, we haven't even scratched the surface with what happened in the Derby game and how that should have been the example to get things done. We haven't even scratched it. But I don't even think that this is the very bottom of the barrel. I think we can sink lower. As long as they are there, we can sink lower. Brendan Rodgers, he should walk. I can't help but disagree with the sentiment that Brendan Rodgers should walk. For the sake of his own legacy. For proving a point and sticking with the supporters, he should probably walk. I don't want him to. I want him to stay here. I want him to stay here and win trophies. But why should he stand beside a group that have sold him out and hung him to dry? His football's not been good enough. That's a completely different story at the side for a minute. But Brendan Rodgers is standing there as Celtic manager after months of telling us that they will improve, after months of telling us that he will be backed and he believes in this board. If he's got his wits about him, he would know that it's time. He would know it's time to go, I've backed these guys as much as I can. You know? And he would do something about it. And that is the position that this board has driven us to as supporters. They've driven us to a point where we actually need to turn around and talk about managers walking, players, and everything else in between. This isn't how we should be talking about a football club that's top of the Scottish Premiership table. This isn't how we should be talking about a football club that could realistically still win 2 or 3 trophies this year. This isn't how we should be talking about a football club that has delivered so much success. But yet, here we are. And they wonder why we treat them with so much disdain. They wonder why we treat them with so much anger and hatred. Because I'm constantly sick of it. Constantly sick of what they do to Celtic. And I feel like I've only scratched the surface. We aren't staying on for half an hour tonight. We're staying on for longer. Because there's a transfer deadline essentially again tonight. Where Celtic need to register players for European competition by 11 o'clock. And we're not going to stay on till 11 o'clock. I've been flying and travelling all weekend. I've not got it in me to stay here at 11 o'clock, but we're certainly going to be on for longer than half an hour because we have a lot to talk about. And by the way, thank you to everybody who's been patient so far that's donated. Thank you to everybody who has stuck by the channel these past few weeks. I want to apologise as well. I don't feel like I should be forced into doing this, but I will. I will apologise. I apologise to every single person who watched this channel through the months of May, June, early July, and told me, Ryan, you're being far too positive. Ryan, you're being far too optimistic. Ryan, you're shutting your eyes and refusing to see the truth. I apologise to every person who I turned around to and said, it's early days and things will be okay. I was naive. And I know I've already said this a million times. I know that I've already said this over the last 2 weeks multiple times. But I am so sorry for trying to channel out there something that was along the lines of positivity and hope that this Celtic board would pull something out the bag. I'm sorry for that. I really, really am. I was stupid. I think a lot of us were stupid. And as much as I do apologise, I don't think any of us were expecting it to get this bad, to deliver the worst transfer window in the past 20 years at Celtic, the last 25 years at Celtic, arguably ever at Celtic. You know? And I apologise for that though. I do, because I should have been smarter. I should have been. And maybe all the links and the transfer news and all the rumours that were floating about gave me the hope that Celtic were doing their job behind the scenes and there was due diligence being done. But due diligence and Celtic aren't words that go together. And until there's change at this club, whether it's forced through supporters or whether it's brought on at the club itself, I don't know if due diligence will ever return. And if you don't agree with that, or you think that I am being if I'm exaggerating or being over the top, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to change the way I feel. I am so disinterested with this football club right now. I have never felt this far away from Celtic. I don't want to go to the games. I don't want to pay for these Europa League ties. I don't want to give the club any fucking money. And I should never have to feel like that, but here we are. We're going to cover so much ground tonight. The failure of transfers, the failure of everything else. I'm going to try and get through as much as I can. Thank you to everybody who's donated so far that I've not been able to get to because of ranting and such. Stephen was the most recent donation. Thank you, Stephen. Nice to see you, mate. As a neutral, of course, Stephen, a Motherwell supporter, saying Celtic have failed to strengthen when Rangers look vulnerable. Fans have every right to be angry at a angry manufacturer of the title race. Yeah, I mean, I think that even neutrals can see it. You know, some will shut. You know, you get the usual ones that will shut their eyes to it all, and they give it the whole like, you have a cheek to greet. You have won this and that, and the money that's been spent at Celtic. It's not comparable to other clubs. It's another situation entirely. It's a completely different kettle of fish. And Celtic fans deserve to be treated with the same expectation they have of their clubs as Motherwell supporters do of theirs, as Hibs fans do of theirs, as Hearts fans do of theirs. This is the equivalent of mistreatment, of mishandling, of neglect that would happen anywhere else, just at the scale of Celtic Football Club. It's as simple as that. You know, like, if this happened anywhere else, I would expect supporters to be unhappy. And it doesn't matter the scale of the club, the scale of the finances that are involved. Bad handling of situations is bad handling of situations. And self-harm is the term that I've used. Self-harm of a football club is self-harm of a football club. And that doesn't matter where it is or what scale it's on. That's what's happened at Celtic. Thank you, Dean, for the donation as well. Best Celtic related content I've seen this week. Thank you, and I'm glad to be back to some extent, even though I really don't want to talk about everything that's going on, and I wish that I could just shut my eyes and forget all about it. Ewan, thank you. Hi Ryan, how are you? Hope you enjoyed Paris. I love the new home top because I'm not putting any money into the club. Feels like the COVID season all over again. Thank you, Ewan. I appreciate it, and I did enjoy Paris. Look, listen, they're two different entities, aren't they? Like, the COVID season, the failures of that season are different from what the failures are of right now. But I think that these ones just feel like so much more of a gut punch because of where we should be, and because we should have learned our lesson when we gambled and we threw success in the air for the sake of contempt or whatever it was that was happening at the club, or just a sheer mess because of a pandemic. Whatever the reason was, we should have learned. And we haven't learned. And instead we're sitting talking about fucking Patrick Bamford potentially signing for Celtic. Thank you, Jacob, as well, for the most recent donation. We all need to band together, all the Celtic channels, the ultras, etc., to get in contact, to get a plan in place. Yeah, look, listen, I don't know what's going to happen over these next few weeks. Apologies if I sound quite stuffy or anything like that. I think I've picked up a cold when I've been over in France. Oh no, I'm going to open the window. Actually, it's getting warm in here. I don't know what the next step is. This is something that was going to be, I think, a big part of tonight's video and probably the content moving forward, the next podcast. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know what you do. Seriously, what do you do? You know what? You need to hit them where it hurts. You need to hit them in their pockets. You need to stop pumping money into Celtic to really make any sort of impact. But my question is, will my efforts be enough? No, we need joined efforts. And even at that, I still worry about what efforts are enough. I do believe that there are people out there who will fill the pockets of the board despite anything. That will fill the pockets of the Celtic board even if I drop out from Europa League games. I do think that there is an exaggerated myth that exists about the whole somebody's got to be there to take my ticket. If 40,000 Celtic fans or 40,000 season ticket holders were suddenly to come off the home cup ticket scheme and suddenly stop to buy tickets for the cup games without giving up their season book entirely, I don't think there's 40,000 people that would fill that. I think we would see empty stands and banners like we did in the Dyer years and the years where Lennon was in charge. I think we would see it. I think there is a myth that exists. I think we can do that. But the thing is, I don't know if there's enough people to actually force that to happen. I think that the amount of people that will do it do allow these people to come in and take the seats and act like nothing's happened. Because at the end of the day, if I don't take up my home cup ticket scheme tickets for this Europa League, which I'm seriously contemplating, somebody's going to take them for a dearer price. They're going to sell my seat for a more expensive ticket. Like, so what do we do? What do we seriously do? It does feel like we need people to band together from elements of fan groups that are like the Green Brigade, like the Boys, like the Celtic Trust, like podcasters and bloggers and fan media, like known supporters. I don't know. I feel like we need a joint effort to even manage any form to force any form of change. You know, I just don't think that there's enough individuals out there doing it off the back of their own back from their own free will that will actually force any sort of change. Peter Lawwell, Michael Nicholson and Dermot Desmond will continue to laugh. I don't know so much about Nicholson because it seems like he's scared of human contact. So maybe not so much him. He might just sit in his own place. But I just don't know what we do. What do we seriously do? Kieran Auld, nice to see you. How are you doing? I'm looking forward to talking to you in the podcast sometime in the next few weeks. You'll answer the call. You'll answer more calls than Nicholson. Yeah, I don't know if it's enough, and that's what scares me. You know, it scares me to think that isn't enough. You know, I've seen people saying boycott buying pies, boycott buying merch. It's all very good in principle, and you won't see me putting money into the club via merchandise anytime soon. I don't even know if the pie stuff and everything else makes an impact, by the way, because I'm pretty sure that's all like subletted and it's the catering companies that make the majority of money there. I just don't know. I think that the next 2 weeks during this international break is going to be huge. I think this is a time for fans and fan groups to maybe come together if it's possible. I'm certainly not going to claim to be the guy here that's going to spearhead that movement. But like, I don't know if the Green Brigade will release a statement. I don't know if they'll come together with the likes of Boys, the likes of everybody that's involved with North Cove, Celtic Trust, etc., and put forward a plan of action. But I feel like this next couple of weeks is something that really does need something like that. I think that we need a collective initiative together as a support to force people out of this club. Because enough is enough. I know I've said that. I know it's the title of this fucking stream tonight. But seriously, enough is enough. See when like things go shite in every other aspect of life, what do people do? They protest. They let their voices be heard. They come together and they force change. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But I feel like there is this attitude that exists amongst Celtic supporters, and I am certainly one of the people who is complicit of this. I am one of the people, I'm not complicit. I'm certainly one of the people who is guilty of this, is what I'm trying to say. I'm certainly somebody who does add into this narrative that I think it does exist. I think there is this that within the Celtic support, that nobody's really truly to take it to the next stage. Bar, the Green Brigade, who have time and time again put stuff out there. I think normal supporters like myself and like many of us watching this are never ready to take it to the next stage for whatever reason it is, whether it's fear of missing out on football, whether it's just not wanting to give up your hobby, whether it's just because you love the club. And I think that's truly what it comes down to. I think it is just because we all love Celtic, and I can't blame supporters for that, but I do believe that amongst us normal supporters there is a reluctance to truly take that next step and to truly do something that will force change. But we can only look at examples in other areas of life. We can only look at examples of things that happen within politics, within society, to go, well, why are we not applying that to Celtic Football Club? And why are we as a support not pushing to force these people out of our club? If you put the heat on, you put the pressure on, and surely and hopefully you force change. Of course, I'm not calling for the extremes. We're all human beings at the end of the day, and I can only say this because, you never want to be somebody that's held to blame for something that might get taken too far. And we've seen examples of it in the past. All within reason. All within humanity. That all good-natured humanity. I'm not saying that we should go out and be violent or cause a stir. But I think it's time for Celtic supporters to look at themselves, including myself, and go, now it's time to act. And now it's time to use our voices to really enforce change in this club. But then again, how much change can you make with Dermot Desmond at the helm, who just obviously doesn't care? It's really, really frustrating. The worst part about it is, and I've seen people talking about it in the chat, the Celtic board will get their day, they'll have their day, they'll get their vindication, and everything will end okay for them. Because I know some of you might struggle to believe it right now, but I'll just make this point clear. Celtic will win the league. They will. And I know we might not be feeling confident of it right now. We will win the league. We'll potentially win 2 trophies. Christ, you can't even rule out the fact that Celtic could go on to win 3 trophies. But they won't do it in a good-looking fashion. They won't do it in a pretty manner. They'll do it because that's the bare minimum. And they'll do it because that's what Celtic should be. With this current squad, they should still be winning league titles. And the board will get their vindication. The board will sit down at the end of the year and they will say, well, we told you so. We'll now go and recruit. We'll make everything okay. And we'll go from there. And then it will be like as if nothing ever happened. And the parasites within will continue to exist. And the only reason we will win the league is because the other mob are fucking miles behind us. The fact that they couldn't beat us at our worst at the weekend shows you that they are miles behind. And I think Rangers fans will admit that as well. And they know that. And they have the right to say, if they had their act together, if they had their affairs in order, they would win the league this year. 100%. Luckily for our sake, they don't have their affairs in order. Luckily for our sake, they're in an even bigger mess than we are. They've invested, but they've not taken it any further than that, the initial stage of investment. They've got a manager who can't seem to get things right. They've got a situation of toxicity amongst the supporters that holds them back right now. We will win the league because the other teams just aren't strong enough yet. But that shouldn't be the bare minimum for Celtic. And the board will get their vindication. And then what do we do? Then what happens next? I think we need to continue putting the pressure on. I think we need to continue having our voices heard. And I think that, I don't know, we at Celtic Park, through banners, through voice, through whatever we fucking can, we need to let these guys know that they aren't welcome. That we want them out of our club. You see these examples of walkouts at other places and stuff like that. What point do we start considering these things? Right, we should probably have some communication. And I should probably talk to you because I said I wasn't ready for a rant tonight and I've only spoke to myself for half an hour. Adam, thank you for the donation. Rangers could win the league if their signings work out. Not even asked about Celtic. Even Cove Rangers are shit just now. Poor Cove Rangers. But this is the thing, like, Celtic, for all their failings at the minute, for all their shortcomings and for all their weakness, still winning a week-to-week basis in Scottish Premiership football. I know we didn't win at Ibrox, but that's, on paper, your most difficult game. We'll win all our home games, and we might do it 1-0, we might do it horridly, in a horrid fashion, in a horrible, horrible way, but we'll do it, and that's how we win. And Rangers can't do that yet, and that's why we'll win the league, And I know that we all don't feel like we'll do it after the weekend, but we will win the league. And see if we don't, you can clip me if you want. Listen, I'll probably happily take no winning the league if it meant that we can fucking be angry about it, No, I wouldn't. Of course I wouldn't. I want to win the league and I want to beat Rangers at every opportunity. But I'm so scunnered. I was enjoying. Do you know? Honestly, I had the greatest weekend. Dublin, Paris, brilliant. 2 beautiful cities, brilliant people, great times. I even met Big Seamus, former fucking 5 or 6 time world champion. You know, I had a great weekend. And just in the back of my mind, and every time I opened Twitter, all it was negativity about Celtic. Negativity. My own negativity, other people's negativity, and at this point, I can't blame people being negative, because I will continue to be negative, and that's where we are. So, yeah. Thanks, Ian, mate. If you could hit the like button, it would be much appreciated. We have almost 1,800 live viewers. I have been a jet setter, Alex. We have almost 1,800 live viewers. A like and a subscribe would be appreciated. I will be back to regular content moving forward from today throughout the rest of the season. And the stream's not done yet, so don't go anywhere. We'll still be on for another half an hour or so. Thank you, Securia, for donating. Said it to my dad. We are the mugs that buy the kits in good faith, and Nicholson & Co. can get their drink and wine and laugh. Sack the board. I think that is the message at the end that we need to make loud and clear. Sack the board. But we are constantly the mugs. I'm a mug. You know? Alex, no, I will not be going to the Legends match. I wanted to. Of course, I've always had a liking for Man United since I was a wee boy, and my dad's always had a soft spot for them. I thought it'd be a nice wee venture for me and my dad to go and see it. And no way. No chance. Not putting the money in it. I don't know if it all goes to charity, I wouldn't mind it, but I don't know if that's what's happening. So I just feel I don't want to be anywhere near Celtic Park. We are arguably in a weaker position right now than what we were when we got beat by Kairat. It says Loch McAtee. And yeah, that's how are we here? How have we managed to land in a situation? I haven't even spoke about all these different transfer sagas. How embarrassing is all of it, by the way? Number one, let's start with Adam Ida. Adam Ida, who we were at a little bit of a situation with him. Oh well, that's not bad. I might still go to the United game then. I'll see how I'm feeling. I might still go if it's all going to charity. I still don't trust them to take some sort of split for it, you know. I don't trust them. I think that the Ida situation is just a real horrible example of how little planning we actually did in this window. And despite all the guy's faults, and despite how much he was struggling, the fact that we even let him go without, you know, we are going to replace Adam Ida with either Patrick Bamford or Kelechi Iheanacho. I'm sorry to all the people out there who weren't the biggest fans of Ida, and I understand why you weren't, because he wasn't good enough recently, right? He wasn't. I still would have took him 10 times over these two we're being linked with now. You know that? I would kill for Adam Ida back right now. So that situation in itself is embarrassing. Yang. That poor boy, for as much shite as I've given him, and for as shite as I think he is, I will hold my hands up and say that poor boy has been dragged through it these last few days because of Celtic pulling the plug, just leaving things to the last minute and arsing about with the young guy's life. A young guy that's over from South Korea, barely speaks the language, doesn't really know what he's doing, and we've asked him about like that. It collapses a deal for apparently Manuel Benson from Burnley. The whole thing, an absolute disaster, an absolute disgrace. Once again, embarrassing. Kasper Dolberg. Why did it take us until the weekend of the transfer deadline to identify Kasper Dolberg as a transfer target? Now, I know people might turn around and say, you had to wait until Anderlecht was knocked out of Europe. We were willing to apparently spend about 8 million quid on the guy. Was there no other £8 million strikers that Celtic could have bidded for in the window that could have made a more realistic move, that could have been a conversation earlier on? Why did they wait to the weekend of the deadline? For him now to probably miss out on a move to Ajax. It looks as though that might not happen. Once again, embarrassing. Datro David Fofana. Celtic look at him at a lone move, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is what we get to. This is the stage we have reached as lone players, guys that aren't getting a game for their team, guys that that would be on loan in the Championship or whatever. That's now the level we're going for. We're going for a short, quick fix and a loan. But okay, it might work. Let's go for it. He picks Charlton Athletic over Celtic. Bang, embarrassing. This whole transfer window has been a story of embarrassments. Even to the point where Benjamin Siegrist is on his Instagram account posting about how things don't change at Celtic because he's already spoken honestly about the mess that we are behind the scenes, and because he's already spoken honestly about how the club arse players about. He's laughing. He's laughing at us. Well, he's not laughing at the fans. He's laughing at the club and how it's been ran. It's embarrassing. And this whole summer has just been a story of embarrassments, to the point now where Celtic have apparently made an inquiry over a potential move for Patrick Bamford, the guy who scored no goals last season, by the way, who has no knees, and then Kelechi Iheanacho, who's fat, rotten, and just been released by his club, probably just because Sevilla couldn't be arsed entering negotiations with Celtic. So this is the situation we've now found ourselves in. We've found ourselves in a place where we are scraping, not even the bottom of the barrel, we are scraping the grunge off the bottom of the ship. We are scraping all the barnacles, and we're looking for something, we're looking for a nugget of gold, and the barnacles rotting at the bottom of the ship. And that is so publicly humiliating for the club, publicly humiliating for Celtic fans, and just depressing all round. Why? Why was it all left? Why was there nothing? Why is Michael Nicholson dealing with transfers? As a chief executive officer, he should have fuck all to do with football-related operations. Give me a wave in the chat if you're a big Nicholson defender. Hi! Justify it. Go, tell me, what expertise in football has Michael Nicholson got where he should be negotiating and playing on the phone? Why is there not a director of football? Why is there not somebody there that's handling all that? Why is Paul Tisdale not doing that? There's rumours doing the rounds, perfectly believable rumours, that Michael Nicholson didn't pick up the phone yesterday, and that's why one of the moves collapsed. So believable. We got a CEO with social anxiety, who won't speak to cameras, who won't speak to people on the phone. What fucking use is that at the top level of professional football? You know? Emmanuel Denis. I mean, these are the players that were being fucking linked to me. How fucking sickening is that? We have been subject to talking like a League One English side. You know? We've got a fucking lawyer and an accountant running our club and running the football operations. Holy fuck. You know? They need chased. They really do. And for all the people who might say, oh, you've been spoiled. I like being spoiled. Sadly, this isn't something that the board continue to have an intention of doing, is spoiling us. It's not about being spoiled, it's about improving, and we have regressed so much. Thank you, Securia, again, by the way. All donations are massively appreciated, and the chat is flying. I'm trying to keep up with as many of the comments as I can. Gotta be honest, I don't get the chase out the club. The man won us a double with an impact, with impact goals and scored 29 while being second choice. Listen, it's a completely different side story. Adam, he does, isn't it? It's like, that's one for another day, another conversation at another time. And I don't think it's something that I can really dive into right now with any real conversation. But yeah, I mean, chased him out to get nothing back out of it. You know, it really does feel stupid now. It really does. And like, aye, okay, evil genius, you lived through the 80s and 90s. Well done, mate. You want a fucking medal. Like, I don't get this whole I lived through the 80s and 90s patter. Well done. Your man conceived you a time where, you know, you watch Celtic go through shite. I don't know what else to say. I really don't. Like, I'm fed up of hearing this. I've lived through worse. Oh, pick me, pick me. Does that just mean that we should strive to be shite again or something? I don't get it. I feel like I'm reverting back into the body of the fan that was there during the COVID times, and I would get people saying the exact same things to me. It's all this young entitled Ned support, you know? It's all these young fans, they don't know what real fucking troubles are. Are you seriously sitting there telling me that this is fun to sit through? You've got 95% of the supporters pulling together and saying the same thing. How can you turn your back on it and pretend it's not happening? You know? And this is like, I have no fault of you, Reese, asking the question, but the fact that we're at the point where some Celtic fans are seriously having to consider Dele fucking Alley as an option is embarrassing. Not on you that suggested it, not on the fans that are suggesting it. The fact that that is where we are is just hilarious. Has there been more in the Emmanuel Dennis stuff? I'm seeing people saying that Stephen McGowan's reporting on Emmanuel Dennis. I have just refreshed my Twitter. I'm not seeing anything right now. Yeah. But I will continue to act like a fanny. You know, if it means speaking honestly, I am going to continue to act like a fanny. Because what else is there to do? You know? And hey, like, plenty of, look, my dad, by the way, my dad lived through some shite as well. He's still moaning about this. My dad lived through the 80s. My dad lived through the 90s. In fact, my dad's a fossil. My dad lived through the pre-66, 67 era. You know, my dad's seen Jimmy McGrory as manager struggling his way through the early 60s when we couldn't win a spoon. You know? He still can look at this situation and go, it's fucking embarrassing. You know? Oh, Jesus. I just don't get why some people can refuse to admit this isn't bad. I should probably stop entertaining it, you know? Thank you, Blake. I'm genuinely scunnered with it to the point I'm not feeling interested at all anymore. Nothing is going to change and improve with this board. Yeah, it's exactly how I'm feeling. It's exactly how I'm feeling. You know, I feel the exact same way. And I will obviously continue to do what I do because I love doing what I do. I will continue to support Celtic because I love Celtic. But I don't have my interest best placed at the minute, and my interest is turned away. At a time where football is as shite as it is, which is a completely different conversation in itself, the sport is on its arse. I don't know about anybody else here, but I fucking find it hard to watch football in this modern day and age. It's bad enough as it is. The last thing I needed was Celtic to get shite alongside it, and to go through the ringer alongside it, you know? I didn't need all that. I didn't need all that. Mark saying, I watched them buy 9 in a row. This is worse because it's self-inflicted. This is self-harm, isn't it? It's just self-harm at the highest level. Rikos, you honestly, you might have a point. Right, shall we get some thoughts on the go? I keep saying I'm going to get thoughts on the go and then something else gets me started. I've found it really difficult. All I've done, in fact, I even had a conversation with Big Seamus about this. You know that? Me and Big Seamus. Seamus asked me my opinions on Brendan Rodgers. He asked my opinions on what's going on. He slagged my mate. We had a lovely chat about football. It was probably the most fun I've had talking about football for fucking weeks, by the way. A nice 10-15 minutes just talking to Seamus about, you know, different things. And even he from the outside is going, what is going on? You know, he doesn't follow Celtic on a basis like we do. You know, he's a Liverpool supporter. But even from the outside, he can see what's going on, you know? Thank you, Mark, for the donation. He scored. Yeah, let's get Paulo Bernardo into the team sometime soon. Now let's try and get that sorted. Thank you for the donation, Mark. It is really appreciated, mate. Aye. Just does Seamus sack the board? Yes, he did. He did. I can confirm that, by the way. Yeah. So what I was going to say before I just started reading out some points and some questions. Do you know what's funny? I haven't even spoke about, like, the derby. I haven't spoke about that shit show of a derby. Didn't do a match reaction. I apologise for that, by the way, because I know some people like hearing my thoughts on the games. I know some people like knowing what I thought about the derbies or whatever. I felt so sickened that I wasted 2 or close to 3 hours in a city like Paris. My first ever time in Paris. I felt sickened that I spent 2 or 3 hours of my time where I could have been going and seeing some brilliant architecture, some beautiful places and scenery. I went to an Irish pub and watched that shite. I'm sorry, I could not bring myself to spend more time doing a match react. I didn't even know what to react to. There was hardly a game of football played, you know? But I'm sorry that I didn't have a match reaction. I've not even touched on that. I've not even touched on a majority of things that have happened. I have struggled within these past few hours and days to think about how I was going to properly open up all of the conversation and all of the talking that we had to do. You know, I really struggled to see how I was going to do it. So I apologise if I feel like I'm skimming over, if you feel like I'm skimming over things and stuff like that. But yeah, nonetheless. Right. Let's get some thoughts. Let's get some thoughts, and let's hear what different people are saying. The level of quality was so bad in that game, it was embarrassing. Yeah, and as a Rangers fan saying that, Blue Baron, yeah, it was. It was a terrible derby. And like, I'm going to steal the words of my good mate David Buick here, who's of course a neutral Dunfermline supporter, but big Scottish football man. You know what he's like, Big David on the podcast. You know, in his own words, spare me the narrative that Rangers were good in that game. They were slightly less shite than Celtic. Maybe more than slight. They were less shite than Celtic. It was a terrible, terrible game, a terrible advert for Scottish football, and a terrible advert for the state of the derby. You know, it really does make you question a lot about this derby, and if the ferocity's gone, if the atmosphere has been just murdered and bludgeoned. Yeah. Joe Allen saying that we are going to go through, how we Joe? We're going to go through a period where this board bring in not just cheap punts for players, they will bring in players cheap punts for managers as well. This will take years to fix. That seems to be a feeling that's existing amongst the Celtic supporters right now. I mean, I can see like Brendan walking and John Kennedy becoming manager, and I love John and I would wish him the best if he became manager. But I you know, that is the situation that we're staring down the barrel of. I mean, how long realistically till we're talking about Scott Brown being appointed the Celtic boss when he's nowhere near qualified for the job? You know? At what point are we actually going to have to sit and seriously consider and think about that? Because that feels like the route we're going down. Do you think the board is reluctant to sign players as Rodgers will not be here next season? But this is the thing, Aidan. That should not and cannot be an excuse for the dire straits that Celtic are in. For the situation that is unfurled over this summer. You cannot use that as a real justification for the situation. At the end of the day, football now isn't the same as football in the past. Football teams aren't built to suit one manager, one system, and one era. And I know that Celtic's best players only last a couple of years before they're poached by bigger sides. But at the end of the day, Celtic and any other club in the world should be doing what most clubs do. And that is building players, getting players in that are going to be able to transcend managers and be part of a football club as a bigger picture. It's not the 80s or 90s anymore. Managers aren't staying at clubs for years upon years. You know, this is the cycle you go through, and you've got to be prepared for that cycle. And that means investing at all given times. You've got to invest always. And Celtic haven't done that. They just haven't invested. They haven't equipped us. And that in itself is just not good enough. Aside from everything else, it's just not good enough. Look, but Bigger says we should be operating like a Champions League club, but it feels like a clown show for a club of size, getting ran like shite and it'll get worse. Should be operating like Bruges. Yeah, I mean, for years we compared ourselves with the fact it should have been like an Ajax. You know, now people use Bruges as an example after their recent successes. Yeah, we should be, and we're not. Middlesbrough fan told me yesterday that Ian Hatcher was the worst player he's seen in his lifetime. Good laugh. Yeah, listen, it's not FIFA 17 career mode anymore. Remember the 9118 FIFA 17 career mode when I had Kelechi Iheanacho? You know, it's 2025, ladies and gents. It's 2025. We've moved on. But I mean, if that's the recruitment, the technique that the club want to take up, they hit me up. Michael, phone me. I've got a list of players I used to sign in FIFA 17 and FIFA 18 and Football Manager 2016. I've got a list of them. I'll give you names, has-beens. You know, I'll hit you up. I'll give you them. You know? And you have to speculate to accumulate, of course. The amount of teams that have spent more than Celtic during this window, yes, Liam, absolutely embarrassing. The fact that I think Wrexham have spent like triple the amount Celtic have. And spare me the pish about Wrexham having the big fucking ownership. We're owned by a multi-billionaire. And they're in the second tier of English football. They can't, you know, they're under restrictions of what they can spend, as are Celtic, but we should be spending more than fucking Wrexham. Saying Celtic are ran like a bowling club is being disrespectful to bowling clubs, and that is spot on. Because I tell you what, Springboy Bowling Club, Black Hill Bowling Club, Ridley Bowling Club, establishments I have been to, and they would not put up with the shite that gets put up with at Celtic Park. And the people that own them and the people that run them are good at their jobs. You know? It is an insult to bowling clubs. At least there's somewhat of a happiness surrounding a bowling club. You go for a cheap night out and it's great. Peter Lawwell's there all the time because it's cheap. You go for a cheap night out and it's great. The cheap nights out at Celtic Park still piss you off. Cheap cunts. God, man. I feel like I've just ran out of words. Keep your thoughts coming in. Over 1,800 live viewers, by the way. Thank you. Thank you to every single person who's hit like, who's hit subscribe, who's especially donated through this stream. It's very much appreciated. Celtic have now, by the way, just to make it clear, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, if anybody knows the exact details, but I believe that Celtic now have just over, we're about to hit the 2-hour mark. Celtic have 2 hours to make any free agent signings and register them for the Europa League this year. Shall we? I was going to say, shall we try a quick experiment and I'll get the squad up and we can have a look through it. I've not even spoke about the signing of Sebastian. Just got Trinetsky, is that how you say it? I can't remember now. You know, I've not even spoke about that. I've not had the time. You know. Thank you, Luke. Oh boy, where do I start? First of all, buzzing for Thursday. Go Birds. If we appoint Scott Brown, I can see empty stands and a managerial career wasted. I can see it would be. I feel like it would be career suicide for Scott Brown. I don't know if there'll be quite be empty stands. Depends on what happens between now and then. But yeah, thank you for the donation. Go Birds. Looking forward as well. Fuck the Cowboys. Man. 2 hours. Yep, 2 hours till the deadline. Oh, and this is just sickening. 2 fucking hours. 2 hours to sign Patrick Bamford or Kelechi Iheanacho. I've seen people throwing about the list, and it's just so funny. Like in times of desperateness, when we all get so desperate, we just chuck everything to the side, don't we? We chuck all sense of possibility, plausibility especially, to the side. People are throwing up the lists of like all the free agents there is right now, and it's like obviously like Rick Karsdorp and Christian Eriksen and all these guys, and they're like, right, now we've got to make a goal for them. It's not great, it's not ideal, but it's better than what we've got. And I'm like, if fucking players are choosing Charlton Athletic over us, why would these free agents pick us? Where's your sense going? You know, it's just not going to happen. Our level now seems to be Patrick Bamford and Kelechi Iheanacho. I'm like refreshing Twitter constantly to see if we get like another update or whatever. But we're still waiting. Yeah, Emmanuel Dennis is one of the ones. Emmanuel Dennis, who was released by Nottingham Forest, I believe. He had a good wee run at Watford a couple of years back. I remember he was a bit of an FPL hero for some people. The fact that that's the route we're going to have to go down. I mean, listen, a French striker might work. It's worked in the past, but, you know. Maybe the board doesn't know there are more FMs out past 2016. That's a great comment. That is a really great comment. I'm like, do you know what really fucking wound me up last night? And fair play to them. Aberdeen signing Jesper Karlsson. Jesper Karlsson going to... He would walk into our team. He'd walk into our team or Rangers team. Now, I know before people go, oh, it's because he used to be managed by Jimmy Tillin or whatever. I get that, right? He probably wouldn't come to Scotland without that Jimmy Tillin link, right? But if there was any sort of acknowledgement that could potentially happen amongst Scottish football, why the fuck were Celtic not putting a word in? You know, it's strange. Absolutely strange. It's the signing of the summer in Scotland, in my opinion. Jesper Karlsson going there. Yeah, Karlsson going there. It's an incredible signing. Fair play to Aberdeen for getting it done. I think that this, ultimately, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be streaming on top of this initial hour. But, like, I think the fact of the matter is, and this is something, over the international break, can I just make one thing crystal clear right now? If you do not like moaning, if you do not like the negativity, which I don't like, I've said, how many times over the summer have I said I don't like being a negative supporter. I don't like peddling the negative narratives, and I want to try and be as optimistic a Celtic supporter as I possibly can. Sadly, the time for that is past, ladies and gents. I don't know if you've noticed, but we sit here, the window's past, we're fucked, we're at the Champions League. You know, there's a reason that we are where we are, and I'm moaning now, right? But, like, this next 2 weeks and the videos, the live streams, and the content that is going to follow in those 2 weeks, I'm sorry to say it, is going to be more on the negative side of things. It's going to be a lot of questioning, a lot of critiquing, a lot of asking what next. It's going to be a lot of that. And I feel like we're only tonight scratching the surface about the problems at Celtic and what comes next. Because realistically, we all now know that we enter the last year with Brendan Rodgers as Celtic manager. For all we know, it could be the last months, last weeks, last days. We don't know what Brendan's thinking after the window. But realistically speaking, we are in the last year of Brendan Rodgers as Celtic manager. And what the fuck happens next? Seriously, what happens next? Who do we go for? Who do we look towards? Like, who did the board try and go to with ambition? And after Neil Lennon openly called them liars, let's just say how it is, after Ange Postecoglou openly called them liars, after Brendan Rodgers has openly called them liars, whether they've said it explicitly or through messages or whatever, what manager looks at this Celtic job as an attractive proposition? What players look at Celtic as an attractive place to go until we force out the problem within? Being the board and being Peter Lawwell, Michael Nicholson, how do we attract anybody to come to this club? Who seriously comes in over? Why people in the chat saying Ange or Knutson? Why on right? You can't do, lads. Let me just make one thing clear. Sorry to piss on you, right? Sorry to fucking put out any form of fucking happiness to try and just squash everything. You can't sit here and talk about the shit show of a club and the people killing it within, and then to expect to go out and get fucking Knutson or Ange. It ain't gonna happen. Why the fuck would Ange look at all of this and go, do you know what? I fancy going back there. What the fuck? Make it make sense. It's not gonna happen, man. It's just not. And you need to realise that. Like, I'm not saying that we're going to stoop to the lows of hiring fucking Peter Grant as our manager, but I don't know what any sort of, how you can sit there and think Ange would walk into this. Oh, he's a builder. Oh, need a lot more than a fucking builder for this, I tell you that. Let me see a couple of donations. Thank you, Connor, saying you see the rumours that Rodgers leaving tomorrow. Yeah, I've seen the WhatsApp stuff floating about. I never buy into it. I mean, how I could do that. You know, I could fucking go and record a voice note or whatever and crop out the conversation and post it. I don't take stuff from WhatsApps, and I think that over the last couple of weeks, you know, I remember all the WhatsApps going about that Eriksson was coming to Celtic and that Maida was off. Here we are, no Christian Eriksson, and Dyson Maida's still here. Thank you, Luke. Another point: if the local Tesco manager hands in his notice and the shop needs done up, they they fix the issues because the shop needs it. So why are Celtic not doing the same when our manager is going? So it's a great way to try and relate it to situations that we could maybe relate to. But hey, you're not wrong, Luke. Thank you for the donation again, mate. But I've said this a million times, you know, at any place of work, within any sector of whether it's retail, transport, government, public services, whether it's health and beauty, sport, education, whatever, if somebody is bad at their job, they're punished. And Michael Nicholson has proven that he is bad at his job. Peter Lawwell has got away with it, and it's just because the guy that owns the club, or owns the club, I should say. Thanks, Alistair, mate. Cheer me up a little bit. Cheer me up. Tesco wouldn't put free trolley collectors on the tills. Listen, if you're talking about trolley collectors, get Kieran Old back in the chat. He knows all about it. He was the trolley man. I'm all tuckered out. An hour and what have I really achieved here? You know, what have we achieved? I feel like we're just running in circles. Joseph, thanks, mate. It shows that the Green Brigade were correct in the first place for several years now. And I said it all those years ago. Joseph, you're bang on. I mean, how many years have I sat here, you know, through protest and through statement and backed what, you know, fan groups have said, whether it's Green Brigade boys or whoever else, because more often than not, 9.9 out of 10 times, they're the ones in the right, you know, and sections of the support would say, oh, they're the Neds, they're the hooligans and what do they know and all the rest of it. Do you know what? Let me just make one thing clear, and if you think this is wrong, you're wrong, and this is just plain fact. The Green Brigade have conducted themselves with more professionalism, with more transparency, with more literacy ability, with more dignity than the Celtic board have for years now. Because every time that there seems to be some form of adversity or controversy or problem that exists within that fan group, whether it's they've been fined for ill behaviour or the use of a flag or a banner or a chant or whatever, at least when they respond to it through statements, through words, and through very well put words as well. When was the last time we got anything off that Celtic board that was actual of any real significance, that wasn't a financial report or an AGM file or something? You know, when was the last time? You know, they conduct themselves with a lot more professionalism over in that fan group, and for being so-called Neds or hooligans, they do a pretty good job, you know. You're starting to sound like one of them. Geese peace. Oh well. Unlucky. I'm afraid you're outnumbered if you think that's the case, because I think that most of us are all on the same page here. Yeah. How could anyone argue that Sorry, am I seeing a point that how can anyone argue that they aren't looking out for the best interests of the... You can't tell me with a straight face that these guys are looking out for the best interests of the company. How? No. No, they're not. They're not. Thank you, Mark, for the donation. Can KT sprint anymore? Looks worrying. Yeah, he wasn't great at the weekend. I'm not going to turn things on him or anything just now, because I don't think it's the time nor the place, and I think we are allowed to honestly critique his performances and stuff, and I think that is something that we should be talking about. But I think there's other players on that part that deserve it more, including one of them being like the captain, who we need to have a serious conversation about, by the way. But you know, that this isn't the stream for it. This isn't the stream for it at all. We'll get onto that and over these next couple of weeks. As I said, there's going to be a lot of conversations. If you don't like honesty, the next couple of weeks in this channel aren't going to be for you. I tell you, the next Celtic the Thunder podcast, when I get a hold of Kieran Auld, that ain't going to be a podcast for you if you don't like brutal honesty. Thank you, Cammy. 10-minute boycott, home and away, cancel your home cup ticket scheme, no more half-time pies, ram their free special kits the players will never wear, and no more merch. Yeah, these are the places where you can hurt them most. And I think, listen, I've not made my mind up yet, but I am seriously thinking about phoning or emailing tomorrow and getting myself taken off that ticket scheme until change happens. Because it's fucking sickening. It is absolutely sickening. Aye. The Celtic, the depression. It's back to the old names, the COVID names. The Celtic, the blunder. The Celtic, the wet fart. The Celtic, the whimper. You know, all those names. We're back to that at the minute. All the ones that the Rangers supporters gave us during the COVID year. Aye. Well, listen. I think I've said all I can for one night. I mean, how much more can I say? I think that I probably should rack up. There's my return from Paris. Honestly, thank you, Mark. Chin up. Look, listen, I know, like, Mark, thank you for the donation, by the way, and thank you for the support of the channel. I really do appreciate that. I think that one thing that I do to try and bring the last section of this stream any form of positivity, if that's even possible. Something that I've said for the last couple of weeks. Thank you, Beefy Saltire. Welcome to the 118 Club, mate. I appreciate that. Welcome on in. I appreciate that, man. I think one thing that I've said for the last couple of weeks is that amongst the Celtic support, there is a sort of refusal sometimes that things can get better. And I'm not going to be a hypocrite here. Things can get better. Things will get better. Whether that's on the pitch, whether that's behind the scenes, whether that's in the stands. This isn't the end of the world. This isn't the end of Celtic Football Club as we know it. You know, we're not staring down the barrel of liquidation like some other clubs. you know, this is a blip in the road that Celtic will overcome, and things will go back to the way that we know and love at some point, one or another, depending on who's there. It doesn't matter. We will return to that. I'm not going to say that there is an absolute no chance that Celtic return to being a place of joy and happiness and winning trophies. But right now, things are bleak. They are so bleak. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite, but I'm just being honest right now. And I don't see things getting better anytime soon. These next couple of hours before this this registration deadline needs to bring something, and if it doesn't, then, you know, what do we do? I just can't believe it. I just can't. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for tuning in tonight on my return from holiday stream. I understand that some people don't want to listen to me sound like a broken record and think that I'm being over the top and I'm being negative. I'm sorry, I've always said that I do not mince my words or talk nonsense or lie to myself or you. I give you all my thoughts as raw and as honest and as emotionally as I can. And that's what I've been given tonight, and that's what we continue to do over the next couple of weeks. Thank you for late donations from Beefy Saltire. We need to use our project players in some games this season. Pointless having them if they're not being used. We're probably going to have to be forced to use them anyway, so it looks like we might see a lot more of some of these project players, whoever they seem to think the project players are. Ross, thank you. Do you think a lot of people will give up the Home Cup ticket scheme and the quicker someone comes in and buys these guys out? I hope that we see it. I think we've already seen a good amount on social media saying that they're going to cancel their season books. Not season books, sorry, the Home Cup ticket schemes. Will it force change? I don't see it. But I would like to hope so, Ross. Thank you for the donation, mate. Thank you to Craig for joining the 118 Club. Thank you to Mikey for saying the board has been shafting this club like a strap-on. Yep. And at least with a strap-on, sometimes there's fun. There's no fun. Joke, by the way. Joke. I'm trying to bring humour into this. I'm trying to bring humour into this, you know, just to bring some sort of light to the conversation. But you're right, we have been shafted. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Hopefully things get better soon. I hope that I've come